Welcome to the Miami Heat Floor Crew, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka Jonathan MMA. We got the crew over here. We got Matt, we got Gad, and we got Marco_Romo. Make sure you follow the boys. They all got their links over there in the names. But with tonight, we got the Heat versus the Kings. The Heat are coming off of a win, showing an impressive victory coming against the Pelicans, getting a dub against them. But tonight, going up against the Kings, a little bit of a different threat, a little bit of a different matchup. So we'll give you a little bit of breakdown of tonight's Kings game, and we'll also, as all we always do, break down the rest of the week to that. But this Heat team looks good coming out of the playoffs. Obviously, no Jimmy, no Jovic, because they got in a little scuffle in that. And, something like that is always good for a team like the Heat, right? Something like that can either make or break a team when it comes to bringing that group together. And what we saw is that team, as we always see them do after a moment like that, i.e., when they played the Pacers with TJ Warren and everything that happened there, right? Brought that group together. Again tonight, I can't remember the name of the dude that tried to do something with Jimmy, some no name, you know what I mean? But Thomas
Najee
Bryan,
Marshall.
yeah, there you go. Marco knew the name, but no Jimmy tonight. Obviously, that it's going to be like it's going to be the Bam show. Hopefully, we'll see him. Take off against guys like Sabonis. He always picks up and shows up against guys that he's typically compared to. But let's get enough from me. I talked enough. John and Donut Dan in the comments, appreciate you guys. Hopefully, definitely get the win tonight. But Matt, I'll start with you, my man. Right tonight, going up against the Kings. Obviously, they're a much improved team over the last couple of years, right? What do you feel like are some of the biggest threats that they have that we should probably look out for tonight?
Well, they're one of the league's most potent offenses. I mean, they've had the fifth best offense in the month of February. We all know what De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are capable of. Sabonis has been, I don't want to say a walking triple-double, but he's had a lot of triple-doubles this year. They have a lot of shooting with Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray, even if they've been a little bit inconsistent throughout this year. So they just have a very potent offense. Miami's had the league's best defense in the month of February, which has been really encouraging. And they've won 7 out of their last 9 games. That 9-game stretch started with beating the Kings. And so potentially they could rally for another victory, even though they have only 10 active guys tonight. Or it was something like 10 active guys because of the injuries and obviously the suspensions to Bryant, Jovic, and Butler. But the Kings are, again, very potent offense, not the best defense. We'll see what happens. West Coast late game, front end of a back-to-back. You're missing your best player. So I'm interested to see kind of how this develops.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, started off with the Kings 7-3 over their last 10, and coming off of currently on a 3-game winning streak, right? But like you said, with the Tyler Hero being on the injury report tonight, not going to have him. That's going to be definitely a lot harder to get some offense created. Hopefully, we see a lot more Duncan Robinson and Bam Adebayo actions. I think that'll be one of the main facilitators when it comes to creating offense tonight, is going to be around those two guys. I think Duncan, continuously, we said it a little bit last year, but this year as well, he continues to grow, right? When he signed that contract initially, he had some moments where obviously he wasn't playing up to it, and I felt like he had to grow into it a little bit. This guy is worth every penny of that contract, in my opinion now, for what he brings to this team. He's absolutely on a great contract for what he's doing, especially coming up on the last couple of years of that deal. Marco, who do you feel for this Heat team, needs to step up tonight, given that, obviously no Tyler Hero, no Jimmy Butler?
I do like the Duncan pick. Shout out to Black History Month Duncan. Jaime Jaquez, I think, is probably the guy I'm looking at because he's been in not a very quiet rookie wall moment for him. I think most of Heat Twitter has kind of like noticed the rookie wall he's hit. It's not even a rookie wall. It's like the rookie Great Wall of China or something. But hopefully, he gets through that. That's going to happen with young guys, and I'm fine with what he's been doing besides not scoring, because that's the one thing that he was doing even whenever, he wasn't going through the sub. He was doing the little things, and he's still doing those little things, obviously. So I think a guy like him could probably look at tonight as like, okay, maybe tonight's the night that I finally get over this hump of like it. And it's mostly just been the scoring because he still has everything else kind of going for him. Defensively, he's a rookie. They're going to have their ups and downs. But I think Jaime is going to be the guy I look for. He's probably going to start tonight with no Jovic or Jimmy. I think Spurs going to probably stagger his minutes with Bam more because they're going to need another secondary playmaker with the bench unit because, there's no bench unit tonight is pretty much the case. So I think Jaime and Duncan are the two guys I'm going to be looking at, but especially Jaime.
Definitely. I think this is like you said, it's a great coming out game. I see a couple guys, Jose Mato saying DeLon right in the comments. Maybe, the defensive impact that he can have tonight. I would love to see a little bit of that. Obviously, with the amount of opponent assists a game, we were able to maybe create that. But with the Kings, top 6 in creating assists for that team, obviously, with the head of the spear coming with De'Aaron Fox with that. So do you expect us, sticking on the topic of DeLon Wright, do you expect us to see a little bit of DeLon on De'Aaron Gad, and how do you expect us, or how do you expect that matchup to go for maybe a couple of those minutes that you'll see that tonight?
I expect the Heat to throw everything at De'Aaron Fox. I don't think many things are going to work tonight. If I'm being honest with you, I think they got their lick by using the zone and getting that win a couple weeks ago and kind of righting the ship a little bit and getting back on track. I think tonight might be the opposite of that, just by virtue of the type of personnel that they have on the floor. But I am very excited to see because theoretically speaking, DeLon Wright is the best point of attack defender that the Heat have, and it's not particularly close. In addition to that, I think he's actually a really smart off-ball defender, and I'd love to see him get involved in that zone. I would assume they're going to throw it out tonight as well. But you throw someone like Caleb Martin, maybe even Jamal Cain, given the personnel we have tonight, you throw them on the top of that zone and you see if they can kind of slow things down, muck things up a little bit, because ultimately the problem is the Kings are probably going to get to the rim at will tonight, in addition to the fact that they're a really good shooting team. So there's a whole bunch of things that you're really going to try to take away. But if you can kind of have Bam anchor the paint a little bit in the zone and have DeLon and Caleb kind of find their ways to maybe not stop, but just put a little pressure on De'Aaron Fox to the point where he wants to take jump shots as opposed to get to the rim, or they force Sabonis into hook shots as opposed to finishing at the rim, I think then the Heat could have a good chance. But if I'm being honest with you, all signs are pointing towards this not being the best game for the Heat, and we understand why.
Yeah, obviously when you're locking Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, 3 of your 5 best offensive players on this team, it's going to be tough to be able to see those things. And you mentioned with De'Aaron Fox, you definitely want to try to let him shoot because over the last couple of weeks, he's looking at 31% from deep. After starting off the season 37, 38%, shooting at a lot higher clip, right? And when you have that, of course, with a guy that's so powerful and so dynamic getting to the rim, when you have the threat of the three-point shot like before, it makes you have to respect that. And you have to play him closer, allowing him to drive past you a little bit more. Maybe you stay back a little bit, you give him a little bit of cushion, you let him shoot some of those jumpers, and you live with that. Right. So you try to do with that from there. So keeping into tonight's Kings theme before we break down the rest of the week, guys, let's get to a quick prediction. Right. So Gad, I'll go around with you this time and start off with you. Give me your quick prediction for tonight's game and how do you, and Jose, a great question. Who's the X factor for tonight's game, offensively or defensively?
So I'm going to roll with Marco's point that he laid out so eloquently. I think Jaime Jaquez is the X factor. I'm excited to see how he looks because we haven't seen him full blast, full go, I really think, since he's been hurt. And it'll be fun to just say, Jaime, do something cool. And then if Jaime can do something cool, that's great. Like, that's what they need. They need him to get that confidence a little bit higher than it has been. Ultimately, I think the Heat do lose tonight. Totally fine with that. I think they're going to have a pretty decent week after that. Or it'll be 500, in my opinion. But yeah, the Kings just play fast. They're very good offensively, and I don't think the Heat have the firepower to keep up offensively tonight. But obviously, I mean, crazier things have happened in this league. I think the Kings are on the second night of a back-to-back. It's a 10 p.m. game. Weird things happen this like Kings Heat matchup. We've just had a whole bunch of weird games over the past couple of years. I wouldn't be shocked if it was closer than people expect. I believe the spread is Kings -7. If the Heat keep it close, I would not be surprised. But I think ultimately they're just gonna not have enough at the end of the game. The Kings will get a nice win at home in front of their fans.
Yeah, like you said, it's just going to come down to availability at this point, and they have a couple of guys that are just doing so good. I mean, like you mentioned, Marco, I think 20 triple doubles for Sabonis already this season, and we still have a couple games going to the end of the year. And then Jose saying starting lineups are announced. So DeLon Wright is actually starting at the point guard position, right? We're also going to see Jaime Jaquez in the starting lineup as well, in addition to everybody else that we kind of expected, Caleb, Duncan, Bam, starting as well. So Marco, same thing. Give me your prediction. Give me your X factor for tonight.
So I saw this tweet. I think it was Hirajuku. If you follow him on Twitter, he said every night that the Heat are down like this many guys, it's either they're going to put up 130 points or they're barely going to scrape 90. I think tonight's going to be one of the barely scraping 90. But I think it'll be close because, again, like Ed said, it's the second night of a back-to-back. And historically, even this year with the offensive uptick, teams on second night of back-to-backs have been really, well below their averages. And I think tonight's going to be one of those nasty brick, lane fest tonight by both teams, both for different reasons, obviously. But I think Miami keeps it close. I think it'll come down to probably a clutch game, a very old school Heat game. I think probably they lose, but I'm going to be fine with it. The X factor, I'm actually going to look, besides Jaime, I'm going to look at Kevin Moat because Kevin's quietly played pretty well for, a couple weeks, before the All-Star break. But he's like the one veteran guy that's going to be like, okay, maybe I can step up here tonight. These guys need me to probably be more of like a post threat. Or, they need me to score more or shoot more. So Kevin Love's going to be one guy as well as Jaime that I'm going to look at. Jamal Cain, last time the Heat were down this many dudes in California, he put up a great night against the Golden State Warriors. So, hopefully he can repeat that. But, I'm looking more at Kevin Love because, he's the veteran guy. He understands, when maybe the team needs from him tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And, something you mentioned, like potentially being a game that we're barely scraping 90. This is one of the rare times where the Heat team you have 4+ defenders starting, right? You have, DeLon, you have Caleb, you have Jaime, and you have Bam, right? Those are 4 actually really good defenders when it comes to that side of things. And, it's very rare that you see that with this team. Obviously, they're going to lack the offensive firepower, but, with guys like Jaime and Caleb, you have more rim pressure with those couple of guys as well. So maybe you're able to create some of that with that and, go from there. My X factor, I don't know if Alondes Williams traveled with the team, but hey, maybe if he gets some minutes, maybe he has the offensive freedom tonight to burst loose. That's all I'm saying. Right. And like Jose and John Rosario are saying, make sure you guys hit that like button. We appreciate you guys joining us almost close to 10 p.m. Real Heat fans out here. So we really do appreciate that. So make sure, as you see, make sure you guys like, and if you're not already subscribed, why not? Right. It's free. What you doing? Matt, give me your breakdown for tonight and give me your X factor with the tonight's game.
I have landed on, I think the Kings win 110-104. I think Miami keeps it close. I think they try to slow the pace down, even if the Kings want to speed it up a little bit. I think Miami tries to muck it up as much as they can for 30 or for like 44 minutes until Sacramento eventually pulls away. I think the X factor tonight, I mean, it's not even like much of an X factor, but it's Bam. Because I think him anchoring the zone, him being one of the primary facilitator, if not the primary facilitator offensively, him being the guy with the ball in his hands, probably the most often tonight, him going up against one of the best, I don't want to say one of the best, but one of the better bigs in the league, in Domantas Sabonis. I think Bam takes it a little bit personally because I'm not sure if he's seen it, but there has been obviously discourse regarding Bam and Sabonis over time from Kings fans, Heat fans, whomever. And so I think Bam gives him his best shot tonight. It's going to be a very physical game, I think, even though Miami is shorthanded, they're missing the majority of their guys, including Hero and Butler. But I think the X factor is Bam, even though like Caleb's a good X factor, Love's a good X factor. Jaime Jaquez is like, you could pick a number of these guys and I could talk myself into it, but I think the primary X factor for Miami to win this game is Bam Adebayo being Bam Adebayo and doing what Bam Adebayo does.
100%, and like you said, with him, it's one of those games where you don't really get to see it much, but you remember, him versus a Brooklyn when he hit the game winner, right? Whenever sometimes the moment is just like, hey, Bam, go make some stuff happen. You can go do that, right? And defensively, the Kings, they have some good players, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, they're not the best defensive. Like, they don't have a lot of matchups to really throw at Bam. when it comes to that side of things, right? Sabonis, not the best defender, right? Obviously, offensively, really good, right? One of the best when it comes to just being a well-rounded offensive player as a big. But defensively, I think this is a matchup that Bam can really attack. Maybe he gets Sabonis into foul trouble, right? That can be one of the things as well. But, I think one of the other X factors, this is a pretty, behind the scenes one, Coach Spo, right? How is Coach Spo going to, react like he always does to having a different lineup, right? He almost yelled at me when I asked about the injury games in Orlando, about how they might prepare him for moments like this. But, at the end of the day, having this, the roster that we do, even though they're not really injured when it comes to Jimmy and Jovic, right? You're going to be able to test out some lineups that you can potentially see in the playoffs when there is just Jimmy and Duncan on the court with another bunch of these guys. Because this could be a defensive lineup that you could see down the line, in a clutch moment, right? You need a stop, you throw Jimmy in there instead of, Jaime, or maybe Jimmy instead of Duncan in there, right? And you have 5+ defenders that can play on and off ball as well. So continuing on defense before we close out here tonight, and I'll get to your predictions again over the next week and see if the last game getting the win against the Pelicans changed that for you guys. But this Heat team, correct me if I'm wrong, has been the best defensive team since we had that meeting, right? So, when it comes to that side of things, Marco, do you feel that this is a thing that was more of a mental adjustment, or what have you been continuing to see even post All-Star break with this Miami Heat defense?
It's a combination of a lot of things. Their schedule after that meeting was also very light. They've had a bunch of teams that are not good at scoring. They themselves haven't been scoring as well, but that's been helped because of the defense that they've had. And I think there's also been a lot of cleaning up of the little things because they were a mess with communication. I saw a lot of miscommunication before that meeting happened, and you could just tell that meeting was mostly guys being like, "Yeah, I'm not in the right spot. You're not in the right spot." When SPO teams require a lot of trust in the defensive system that they play because it's very. A lot of coaches talk about that. It's very much different how they run a zone. It's different than any other zone that any other team in the league runs. Teams throw a zone out there, but it's not like Miami's zone. It requires a lot of mental fortitude because it requires you to be on your head for around 24 seconds of that shot clock. And I think Miami cleaned up a lot of that. They've been playing a little bit better of a zone, better of man-to-man. Not by much. I still think, that's not their best look. The drop has been cleaned up a little bit. Guys are trusting Bam to keep that drop a little cleaner than they were at the beginning of the year or at the middle of the season whenever that dropout came. But I think it's been a lot, of the little things they cleaned up a lot. I saw them actually against Boston in the Super Bowl game. I remember they had a pre-switch, which I was like, Miami hasn't done a pre-switch in forever. And I was just like, wow, that meeting actually might have did something. So, those kind of things, that I've noticed. Hopefully they keep up, and hopefully it's not just the opponents they've had. Maybe this can be a thing that they can, build off of. But, this is, again, some of it is the schedule, but some of it is that they've cleaned up a lot of miscommunication that they had.
Absolutely. And actually, just building off that point, Gad, do you think that this Heat team can continue to make their defense their identity going into the latter portions of the seasons and build upon using that into the playoffs? Because that has been something going into, you watch a lot of previous seasons, right? The Milwaukee Bucks, one of the best offensive teams. We knocked them out of the playoffs for a couple seasons, right? We've had a bunch of other teams that really did great offensively. I think the Atlanta Hawks in 2022, offensively, they were a juggernaut. We went in 4-1 against them, I think, as well, right? So this Miami Heat team has done a really good job of suffocating teams come the defense. Do you think this Heat team has the personnel and unit to keep up that defensive intensity going into the playoffs for this season?
So I think you initially labeled it as identity. I don't think I would define them as it would be their defensive. The defensive side of the ball isn't their identity to me. I think they actually have a chance to be very well-rounded and balanced because I think they have the personnel to make the offense really work. And I think they have the personnel to have the defense keep them in games. But I don't think it's going to be some sort of world-beating defense the way that it has been over the last month or so. And that's fine. I don't think they need that to the extent that they maybe have needed that in previous years. But I think the defense can stick for the most part, because like Marco said, it's a lot of little things. And another thing is they've just picked up the level of physicality that I think they've needed, right? You watched the game against Boston a couple months ago, And it was very much just, oh, we're not going to try to muck anything up. Just kind of, you're going to get through whatever movement you want to get through. And then if we make you miss a shot, you miss a shot. The last time they played Boston, the last couple of games that they've played over this stretch of the last 9 games or so, there's been a lot more physicality to the point where teams are having to kind of fight through some contact in order to just get their off-ball movement going. And that, while it doesn't seem like that much, you do that over the stretch of a game, and then you look at the fourth quarter, and the Heat, who are probably more conditioned than the other team, they're keeping the same level of intensity, and the other team's tired because it's weighing on them, because the Heat play a different brand of basketball in the regular season at this time of year than most of the NBA, because a lot of these guys in the dog days of the season, they don't care. They do not care at all. They'll just let you run through whatever you want. There's no hand checking off ball, whatever it may be. So I think that part of the Heat and the fact that they're doing that can really be something that they hang their hat on. I don't think they're going to be some top 3 defense for the rest of the season, but I think you have a good enough defense for this Heat team to be able to make a decent amount of noise.
Absolutely. And Matt, I'll let you close out with this one, right? If this Heat team picks up a victory tonight, I think last week you were either 3-2 or 2-3 over these next couple games. The Heat team picks up a victory tonight. Does that change your outlook, for the predictions that you made going up until the Saturday game, which is going to be up against the Jazz? You know what I mean? Does that change your prediction with that side of things?
No, because I think I still had them beating Portland and Utah. And I had them losing to Denver, and I think that remains the case, win or loss tonight. So that's how I think it ends up. I think I originally had them losing tonight. So if they win tonight, it's not going to change my perspective that much.
No, for sure. Like you said, with no Jimmy and, without that, it's really, you can't get a true gauge for this team. But just for the short-term outlook, I do think if we are able to pick up a win tonight, going into, a Portland matchup, and also, you're going to have Jimmy coming back with fresh legs on that one. The Nuggets matchup, I think that's the toughest one, which is always the case when anybody goes into Denver. The elevation, right? Traveling there, it just everything when it comes to playing that Denver team. It's always hard. So I don't expect us to pick up the win tonight. But guys, we are closing in on the Kings game tonight. Marco fought through the flu game to make it here tonight. So we appreciate the boy for doing that. But if you're still with us, make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you guys subscribe. Follow the boys as well. They got some great content on their feed as always. But as always, guys, make sure you guys keep it locked with us. We'll keep you guys locked in next week. And let's go Heat.